There comes a moment, usually somewhere after 50, when you realize something unsettling and strangely relieving at the same time. You notice that no matter how kind you are, how careful you speak, or how much you bend yourself to fit, some people will never truly see you. And in that quiet realization, something inside you begins to loosen. For many years, being liked felt important, not because you were weak, but because belonging mattered. Approval felt like safety. A smile returned, a nod of recognition, an invitation remembered. These small signs told you that you still had a place, that you were still welcome, that you still mattered. When we are younger, being liked is often tied to survival. At work, it means opportunity. In family, it means harmony. In society, it means protection from being pushed aside. So we learn early how to soften our edges, how to hold back a truth, how to laugh when something hurts, how to say yes when the body says no. We become skilled at reading rooms, skilled at sensing moods, skilled at adjusting ourselves so others remain comfortable. And for a long time, this skill serves us. It helps us build careers, raise families, maintain peace. But as the years pass, something subtle changes. The cost becomes clearer, the energy it takes grows heavier, and the reward grows thinner. You may notice that after a certain age, the effort to be liked no longer brings the same warmth. The smiles feel polite, not present. The praise feels automatic, not sincere. The invitations arrive less often. The room does not turn when you enter the way it once did, not because you have lost value, but because the world has a way of chasing what appears new and loud. This is often where the quiet shift begins. At first, it may feel like rejection, like being slowly erased. You may wonder if you've done something wrong, if you've become invisible, if your usefulness has expired. These thoughts can sting deeply, especially for someone who spent decades being reliable, supportive, and emotionally available. But beneath that sting is a doorway. When the desire to be liked starts to weaken, it doesn't vanish all at once. It loosens its grip in small moments. You find yourself less eager to explain yourself, less concerned with smoothing over tension, less willing to pretend enthusiasm where there is none. You may still care, you may still be kind, but you no longer feel the same urgency to be approved of. This is not bitterness, this is not withdrawal, this is discernment. Psychologically, something important is happening. Earlier in life, much of our identity is shaped externally. We measure ourselves through reactions, through feedback, through acceptance. Over time, especially after facing loss, disappointment, and change, the mind begins to shift inward, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You start asking quieter questions, not "do they like me?" but "do I like who I am when I am with them?" Not "how do I appear?" but "how do I feel afterward?" Not "am I being included?" but "am I being respected?" These questions mark a turning point. There is a particular relief that comes when you stop performing for approval. Conversations become simpler. Silences become less threatening. You speak slower, or not at all, without anxiety filling the gaps. You realize that not every thought needs a witness. Not every feeling needs validation. At first, this can feel lonely. The habit of being liked runs deep. When you stop feeding it, there can be a hollow space where approval once lived. But if you sit with that space long enough, you discover something steady underneath. You discover self-respect. Self-respect does not announce itself loudly. It does not demand attention. It shows up as calm boundaries, as honest pauses, as the quiet confidence to say, "that doesn't work for me," without explanation. When you stop trying to be liked, you stop negotiating your dignity. Many older adults carry a lifetime of emotional labor. They were the ones who kept things together, who adjusted, who absorbed tension so others wouldn't have to, who listened more than they spoke, who gave without keeping score. But there comes a time when the body and mind say, gently but firmly, enough. You may notice you no longer tolerate subtle disrespect, the dismissive tone, the interruptions, the jokes that carry a sharp edge. Where once you might have smiled and moved on, now you simply fall quiet, or you leave earlier than planned, or you choose not to engage again. This is not weakness, this is strength that no longer needs to prove itself. There is a powerful psychological shift that happens when approval stops. When you are trying to be liked, you look at others through hope, through generosity, through the desire for harmony. When that desire softens, perception sharpens. You notice patterns you once excused. You recognize when effort is one-sided. You feel when warmth is conditional. And instead of chasing repair, you step back. This stepping back is often misunderstood by others. Some may call it distance. Some may sense a change and feel unsettled. They may accuse you of being cold or different or difficult. But what they are often responding to is the loss of access. You are no longer offering unlimited emotional availability in exchange for minimal respect. One of the quiet freedoms of later life is realizing you do not need to be understood by everyone. Being misunderstood is no longer terrifying. It is simply part of being honest. You may notice that you speak less about your plans, less about your feelings, less about your struggles. Not because you are closed, but because you have learned that not every listener is a safe one. Privacy becomes peace. There is also a subtle change in how you handle conflict. Earlier in life, disagreement felt dangerous. It threatened connection. Now, disagreement feels manageable. You can hold a different view without needing to defend it aggressively. You can allow others to be wrong about you. This ability comes from a deep internal shift. Your sense of self is no longer anchored to applause. Psychologically, this is a movement from external validation to internal alignment, and it is one of the most stabilizing shifts a person can experience. You may also notice how your body responds. Shoulders relax, breathing deepens, sleep improves. There is less mental replaying of conversations, less second-guessing, less imagining how you came across. The mind grows quieter when it no longer performs. This quietness does not mean life becomes small, it becomes intentional. Relationships that remain tend to be fewer but truer. Conversations go deeper or remain comfortably simple. There is room for silence without discomfort. There is respect without performance. You begin to value how someone treats you when there is nothing to gain. Family dynamics often change during this shift. You may stop over-explaining your choices. You may stop rescuing others from the consequences of their decisions. You may love deeply, but with clearer limits. This can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if others are used to your flexibility, but over time it creates healthier ground. You are no longer giving from depletion. At work, if you are still working, this shift can be especially powerful. You no longer chase recognition. You do your work with quiet competence. You speak when necessary. You do not compete for attention. This often results in something unexpected. People listen more when you do speak. Presence becomes more noticeable when it is not constant. There is authority in restraint. Socially, you may feel less drawn to gatherings that drain you, less interested in surface-level exchanges. You may choose solitude without feeling lonely. You understand the difference now. Loneliness is the absence of connection. Solitude is the presence of self. When you stop trying to be liked, you also stop abandoning yourself. You stop laughing at what hurts. You stop agreeing to what exhausts you. You stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. You stand in your own emotional posture. This does not mean you become rigid. In fact, many people become softer in the right ways, more patient, more observant, less reactive. There is space to respond rather than react. You begin to trust your timing, your instincts, your pace. One of the most surprising outcomes of this shift is how it affects your sense of time. Urgency fades. You no longer rush to prove anything. You understand that whatever truly belongs to you does not require chasing. This understanding brings calm. There may still be moments of sadness, moments when you wish to be seen more fully, moments when old habits tug at you. This is human. The difference is that these moments no longer control you. You allow them to pass. As the need to be liked dissolves, something deeper takes its place, a quiet self-acceptance, not the loud kind that declares worth, but the steady kind that assumes it. You stop asking permission to take up space. You stop apologizing for your needs. You stop explaining your boundaries. You live them. There is dignity in this stage of life that often goes unnoticed by those who have not reached it yet. It is the dignity of someone who has lived enough to know what matters, who has been disappointed and survived, who has loved and lost and remained open. It is not flashy, it does not demand admiration, it simply exists. And paradoxically, when you stop trying to be liked, you often become more respected. Not because you seek it, but because respect responds to self-respect. People sense when someone is no longer negotiating their worth. They may not say it, they may not even be conscious of it, but they feel it. You walk differently, speak differently, listen differently. You are no longer auditioning. This shift also changes how you relate to aging itself. You stop fighting it as an enemy. You stop chasing relevance through exhaustion. You honor your limits. You honor your wisdom. You understand that visibility is not the same as value. There is a calm pride in knowing who you are without needing consensus. As the years continue, this calm becomes a companion. It sits with you in the morning. It walks with you through ordinary days. It reminds you that peace is not found in approval, but in alignment. You may still enjoy being appreciated, that is human, but you no longer depend on it, and that is freedom. The quiet shift that happens when you stop trying to be liked is not dramatic. It does not arrive with celebration. It arrives with a deep exhale. It feels like coming home to yourself after a long journey of accommodation. It feels like setting down a heavy bag you forgot you were carrying. It feels like finally trusting that you are enough without witnesses. And in that trust, life becomes simpler, richer, and more honest. You do not need to announce this shift. You do not need to explain it. You simply live it.